Hi everyone. Welcome to Global Compliance Panel's live webinar on FDA inspections, do's and don'ts. My name is Sam and I'll be hosting today's webinar. On behalf of the Global Compliance Panel team, I would like to thank you for being part of this event. Today's webinar will be presented by Kerry Paul Porter. Kerry gained his pharmaceutical manufacturing experience during his 28-year career with Merck. His career spanned the areas of quality operations, audits and inspections, laboratory, human resources, and learning and development. More specifically, his responsibilities included quality management of laboratory assessment, site GMP lead auditor, FDA QSIT, Quality Management System Manager, 5S Coordinator, GMP Trainer, Annual Ongoing New Hire, OSHA Regulations and Process Safety Management Training, as well as internal and external public relations. Kerry is a graduate of James Madison University in Harrisonburg, BS in Chemistry, and is an advanced Toastmaster. He has received qualifications and certifications in the areas of facilitation and training, including competency-based curricula. His past affiliations have included ASQ, ASPD, PDA, GMPT, ASPI, and AQP. He is the founder of Summit Consulting Incorporation and has been assisting firms in the areas of remediation and project management within the manufacturing and laboratory functions for the past 7 years. We are honored to have such a distinguished person such as Mr. Porter with us to present this webinar today. Before we begin, I would like to inform you of the program outlined for this training session. This webinar is for 60 minutes duration. First, Kerry will take you through today's webinar, highlighting the areas that will be covered, and he would then share with you his presentation. We would like to inform you that all participants, once part of the teleconference, have been placed on mute and will remain so until the Q&A window begins. It is for the purpose of avoiding discontinuity and for allowing the presenter to speak clearly, so that everyone present can take maximum benefit from this webinar. We also request all to hold back your questions until the Q&A window begins. 10 minutes of time will be allotted for the Q&A, during which your questions will be answered. If for any reason you get logged out of this training session or teleconference, please follow the same procedure to join in again. Now that we're all ready to start, I request Kerry to take it from here. Kerry?
Okay, Sam. Well, listen, thank you very much for the introduction, and I want to welcome everyone to today's program. And I guess it could be either a good morning or good afternoon, depending on what coast you're on. I do welcome you to this program, especially in today's environment where there are a lot of FDA inspections going on, more so than ever before. Consequently, a lot more citations are going as a result of that. And I think some of that is to do with the fact that people, regardless of their quality systems, okay, people just aren't prepared for how to handle these the FDA handle themselves during an FDA inspection. So that's what we want to basically go through here today. Is what are we looking at here? Because depending on where you are, too often this is the type of scenario that falls into place that the phone rings and you see this person driving to work and they're just petrified the fact that the FDA is waiting for them when they arrive at the facility. And this panic too often sets in. So what we want to do today is to find how can we best eliminate this panic, how can we best prepare ourselves for the time when an FDA inspector walks in. What do we need to know how to recognize how we can have a successful FDA inspection. Now, off the set here, I want to make sure we're very clear on one thing, and that is what we're going to talk about today is the management of the inspection itself. How your company is prepared from a quality system standpoint, product line standpoint, and laboratory standpoint that's dependent on you. So basically what I'm saying here is that as a result of what you'll be learning from this program does not mean that you won't get any 483s, will not mean that you won't get a warning letter. That's dependent on your company. What I'm telling you here is that what we'll be looking at here is how to work through an FDA inspection. That's the basic objective for what we're talking about today. Because a successful inspection comes down to these key items. One, that you carefully planned for this inspection, that you haven't waited until you're driving to work and say, oh my gosh, I didn't think about this and I didn't do that. But it takes careful planning to ensure that you have the activities in line to support this inspection. Next off the bat is we want to make sure that we know how to implement and monitor those quality systems to ensure we have a good system in place. Now, I mentioned to you before that it's your quality systems are your quality systems, okay? But we want to make sure that we have them implemented and we monitor them so we can, in fact, demonstrate this state of control. Because that's basically what it comes down to for an inspection, is to demonstrate that state of control. And last but not least is how to, as it says here, clearly articulate and communicate what our quality systems are all about to, as we see once again, to assure that we are in, fact, a state of control. Okay, so this is what it comes down to for a successful inspection. But in order to understand what the inspectors are looking at, I think it's best for us to take a look at what are the expectations of the FDA. And we can look at that from determining, well, what's the mission of the FDA and what do they expect to see when they come to your facility. If you go back and look at several of the speeches of Dr. Hamburg, who is the current commissioner of the FDA, what she has said over the past several years, I think it becomes very clear as to what is the mission of the FDA. And you can see these terms right here. The FDA is responsible for protecting the public. You see, she said that in March 2010. In April 2011, to protect the public health. If you go now to down here, you see 2012. Look at this. Oh, by the way, this little phrase, or not phrase, but speech she made here was as a result of the celebration, if you will, of the 50th anniversary of the Kefauver-Harris Amendment, which, as you know, are the actual CGMPs that were implemented as a result of the Drug Amendment of 1962 to the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. But at this time, she said, look at this right here. Today, 50 years later, we still have more reason, okay, to remember the events of 1962, blah, 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 as we go on to say, but look at this. Our mission to promote and protect the health. So I think we see a very clear message here as to what is the mission of the FDA. It's not to come in and police you and badger you, but we definitely know what their mission is. Further, we see this year, over the years, Dr. Hamburg is going to say that the FDA is a science-based regulatory agency with a public health mission. So there's no doubt in my mind, and there should be no doubt in your mind, as to what is the mission of the FDA. Okay? And further, one of her directors goes on further to say protection of public health is FDA's #1 priority. I think it's pretty clear. And this is the message you want to communicate to your management, to your employees, and to those of you who may be in regulatory compliance, those of you communicate to those of your office and whatever who deal with the regulatory aspects. So we can see right here that from the FDA's website that they protect the public health, they advance public health, and to accomplish this mission, they then in fact do enforce these standards through their inspections, okay? So their inspections aren't their mission. Their mission is accomplished through these inspections. Okay, so I hope this does, maybe change your paradigm, change your thinking on what the FDA is all about. But now I want you to compare this to missions of the company. I've picked 4 mission statements from various companies, and I think you can see what is a little bit of a difference here. Company A, answers that matter, create and deliver innovative medicines, help people to live longer, quest for longer, healthier, happier lives, to provide society with superior products, and to improve the quality of human life. So folks, if you just look at these mission statements right here and compare them to what the FDA is saying, I think you see why there's a difference of viewpoint sitting across the table from an FDA inspector. Now, a little bit of a plus here. In addition to the FDA, I've also given you the MHRA, which is the British equivalent of the FDA, and the EMA, which is the European Medicines Agency. Notice they have the same mission: promoting public health, promotion of public and animal health. So once again, no matter whether it's FDA, British, European, and probably any other agency around the globe, the mission is the same. And unfortunately, the communication between the company and the agency doesn't always see eye to eye. So I'm hoping this gives you a different viewpoint, if you will, about the expectation of the FDA. Okay, so we're here to provide medicines and longer life, et cetera, but it's a regulatory agency that, sure, they want you to do that, but they want to make sure that you're protecting public health. That's the deal, folks. That's as clear as it gets. Further, the FDA, and when I say the FDA, other agencies as well, but they have a definite philosophy that we are a self-regulating industry. In other words, we have SOPs, we have procedures, they've given us the regulations. We should be self-regulating ourselves. In fact, we, the FDA, shouldn't even have to come in to look at you, because you should be doing the job as you need to be. You should have a quality assurance place. You should have quality control in place, okay? But our oversight is necessary because of past practices by various companies, okay? And in some cases, the FDA has to come and improve, and yes, they are coming in to police. But the FDA has given us key documents, but our own key documents still stand. Our SOPs, our standard operating procedures, the GMPs, if you're going to put the little C in front of that, right? The CGMPs, oops, that's not a very good C. There's a C. The CGMPs, okay? We have everything we need to be self-regulating. But there's also the regulation by publicity as well, and that is that the FDA, when they do find situations, they tend to focus on the big boys, you know, the leaders of the industry. I don't want to mention names here, but the companies that stand out more so than others. These are the ones they focus on, and they have some rather dramatic actions they put into place, whether they be the standard 483s, if you will, but warning letters, consent decrees, injunctions, recalls, closures, arrests, whatever it might be, okay? They're rather dramatic. And the enforcement tools, as you've already mentioned, 43 and whatnot, but the enforcement tools also include just the inspections, whether they be surveillance or compliance inspections. These are all in place to help them to accomplish their mission. And in some cases, rather dramatically, they of course do include fines and delays in getting products on the market. The FDA, the public probably sees these as more of a consequence than anything else. In other words, if the product doesn't go to the market or it's recalled from the market, that affects the public more than probably any one of these other ones as well. Sad but true, the public does not understand the warning letter, consent decree situation. So the inspection, as we've already mentioned, is verifying that you are in fact in a state of control. And this lets the agency know that you're consistently meeting your quality specifications and that you're meeting the expectations that you've set up. Okay? So this is what they expect. When they walk in the door, this is what they expect to see, because this is what you said you're going to do. But now let's look at we know the regulations. Okay, we know that it states that they're going to come in and review our documents, but let's look further at what are some of the guidances that the FDA uses to come in and do their inspections. Well, the quality systems approach to the regulatory, to the pharmaceutical agents, I'll get it here in a second. Let's try that again. The quality system approach to the pharmaceutical industry is set forth in this guidance document. And folks, the guidance document really is more or less an SOP, if you will, for the FDA regulations. So if you look at this, September 2006, when this was put into place, this outlined the 6 systems approach, okay, of quality, facilities, equipment, materials, production, packaging and labeling, and laboratory controls. This is all outlined in this document. And let me just call to your attention this number here, 7356.002. If you go to the website and do the search on this, you'll find all the details you need with regards to the quality systems approach. Okay, so write that down and take a look at that as well. And you'll see this diagram. You probably have seen this diagram before, where we see that the quality system is the overarching system. It is one in itself, but it's also the overarching system between production facilities, laboratory materials, and packaging. So this is their viewpoint now, there being the FDA viewpoint on inspections. And they do their inspections in two ways. They have the full inspection and the abbreviated inspection, which they put into play depending on where the company falls into the realm of things. The full inspection is when there's little known about an industry or a firm's CGMP compliance, or they're maybe brand new to the industry, or they just haven't been inspected before. So they would do a full inspection. This includes, as you see here, at least 4 of these quality systems that we saw back here, right? So they'll do at least 4 of these. Okay. And they'll do this with the guise, if you will, that all 4 of these must be in a state of control. The abbreviated inspection, well, this is done to provide an update, okay, to a firm's CGMP. So when we say update, well, they've been inspected before, okay, so this is the update, or they have a good history of previous inspections. And so the need to do a full inspection doesn't come into play here. So they'll do an abbreviated inspection which covers at least 2 of these systems. And once again, the same thing falls true here, that if what they're expecting to see is that the 2 systems they inspect should be in a state of control. If the 2 systems are in a state of control, you have, quote, passed your inspection, right, as the term goes. Going back to the full inspection, if you pass all 4, you're good to go. So this would then make you see this whole inspection in a different light. So if they only look at 2 and you're good, the other 4 will be, I use this word, presumed, or you can use the word assume if you like. They presume that the other 4 systems are in place. Likewise with the full. If they look at 4, you're good to go, then the other 2 are presumed to be in place. But once again, notice it does say at least in that regard. So how do we get ready for these inspections? Well, I've already mentioned to you the 7356.002 to give you a full understanding of the quality systems. But let's take a look at a few more. Let's look at site leadership's training, your inspection team, preparedness, quality, readiness kit, and a mock inspection. Let's take a look at these. We'll first start with the role and responsibility of site leadership. Site leadership's responsibility is very clear, that they must make sure that the site is prepared and ready for this inspection, whether it be through the quality systems themselves, whether it be through training, whether it be through the area, how the place looks. They need to make sure, site leadership is responsible for making sure that's ready to go. They need to make sure that the staff, whether it be their individual staff or the management staff or the individual staffs within the company's departments, they must know what their job entails. They must know what their expectations are. They should look at the fact of having a SOP on inspection visitations. And notice this term inspection is thrown in here. Most of us have a visitation SOP, but we're looking now at having an inspection visitation. In other words, what should we be doing when an inspector arrives on site? As well, SOPs in your documentation system, your records of how you manage your SOPs should be organized. Site leadership is responsible for making sure that takes place as well. And then overall, the site leadership is responsible for the quality management of the entire company, facility, whichever it may include. Well, let's take a look at what does this quality management system include. Well, obviously, it's part of the process that's involved, and I've depicted this with a process mapping, but it comes down to the descriptions of your systems, your product lines, your process lines, even your laboratories. Are all these nicely defined as a process? Now, with that, you want to make sure you have proper procedures in place, right? You have batch records, you have laboratory worksheets, you have procedures and policies all in place to implement and to implement these processes you've already defined earlier. And then you want to make sure you have a system for executing all of these records, batch records as I mentioned, laboratory worksheets. Make sure there's a system in place to properly execute and control these documents as well. Last but not least is the measurements of these. We call these metrics, right? Do we have a system in place to study the effectiveness of this whole process from beginning to end? This is what your quality management system looks like. This is what you should have in place. And this essentially is what the FDA is going to be ensuring through each of those systems that they look at. So, as I mentioned, your quality system is managed, okay, ensuring processes in place, that you have completion of whether they be internal or regulatory commitments. Of course, internal would be the result of your internal QA audits, right? So are you committed to those and getting those done in time? Any recurring events, call them deviations, atypicals, nonconformances. Do you identify those properly? Are you managing those? Are you correcting those? That type of thing. And backlogs. This gets into metrics. This gets into investigations. Gets into processes to ensure that everything's is moving in place. And if there's a stumble, are you taking care of those before you move on? And then last but not least, my favorite area, of course, is training. Making sure that people are properly trained to do their job. It's a key ingredient, folks. 21125 tells you very clearly that people must be trained to do their job and qualified to do their job. Qualified, the FDA is truly looking now to make sure that our people qualified to do their jobs. This is a part of your quality management system. So with this training rollout, inspection readiness training is a key component of that, right? Because we're looking here now at FDA inspection preparedness, so you want to make sure that you got a training program in place for this. Okay? Don't assume people are going to get this through osmosis. Have a regulatory inspection program in place, and people are properly trained on this. And it's quality's responsibility to assure they're trained, but overall it is site management that must make sure to do this. So who should be in this training? Well, you can see right here we talk about all personnel who perform GMP activities. Who is that? You're right. It's just about everybody on your facility. And whether this be a custodian, a manager, an operator, a chemist, analyst, whoever it is, they should be trained at minimum on proper conduct during a regulatory inspection. So this is part of this regulatory inspection readiness program is this right here, is that all employees must be trained for this inspection. We now will look at the inspection team that's in place, okay? So as I go through this, I want you to realize that I'm not suggesting that you have an individual person for each of these. One person may wear more than one hat, but the point is that you have more than one role in place to make sure this inspection is well managed. Everything from a front room leader, and I got front room in quotes here because some call it different things. Some call it a war room, some call it the inspection room, whatever you call it. I'm talking about the room where the FDA, where the inspectors are seated, where they're reviewing documents, where they may be conducting interviews. This is the front room. You want to make sure you have escorts. Escorts who are going to walk the inspectors around the facility, walk the inspectors from the entrance, the foyer, to the front room, and making sure you have enough escorts in place. A scribe, or maybe I should put an S on that, scribes, okay? More than one, depending on how your inspection works out, but have scribes in place as well. Commanders-in-chief, these are, again, as you'll see in quotes, because, just to give them a little term, maybe lieutenant or whatever you want to call them, but these are the folks who are behind the scenes. They may be in the back room. They may be in the review room, the ready room, whatever you want to call them. These are the folks who are managing the inspection behind the scenes and make sure things work. We get people in place for interviews. We have documents ready to go. Whatever it takes to have that inspection to be successful, these folks are really doing it. Subject matter experts, often overlooked. Subject matter experts are those who know the process, they know the procedures, they know what's going on. Now, if you're a manager and you're in this webinar today, or a director, don't mean to offend you, but folks, managers and directors don't always know what's going on. It's a shock to a lot of people, I know. But the SMEs are the ones who do know what's going on. We need to have more confidence in their ability to describe what's happening to our inspectors. Now, how do we get there? Well, number one, they should be a part of your inspection team. And number two, as we saw earlier, they should be a part of the training aspect of how to conduct themselves during an inspection. We cannot forget we cannot overlook, these subject matter experts. Logistics for touring, especially stair operations, this is also a part of the inspection team process, and also daily review meetings and assignments. All the stuff that goes on during the day. These things are going to happen, right? There's going to be assignments being made, that type of thing. But also at the end of each day, there are going to be review meetings. And who needs to stay for those meetings? How are we going to handle electronic data? Just a few questions, a few areas. So have these as a part of these topics as a part of your inspection team as well. And don't forget some of the other behind the scenes folks, liaisons, recorders, hosts, runners, and I throw SMEs in here again because I want to emphasize the point that they have a key function within your inspection team. Okay, so don't forget everybody that's involved in your inspection should be a part of this inspection team. So let's look at the infrastructure on this whole thing. We've already talked about the front room, okay? We've mentioned, I think, war room, back room, and whatever other rooms you might have. Let's take a look and see how this actually should work. What's the process for this? Well, as I mentioned, we have our front room, back room, and other rooms, and there may even be an on-deck room, but they should be readily available, if not set aside or immediately ready to go. These could be a conference room, a training room, whatever it might be. And folks, I'm not saying they should be sitting there empty. I'm saying that if an inspector walks in the door, then priority takes hold. If there's a training or a meeting going on in these rooms, they have to leave. And the room is instantaneously turned into one or all of these rooms, whatever the case may be. Okay? And make sure you have an audit tracking system in place as a part of your infrastructure to monitor the request documents that are coming in, interviews, and you can get systems, they're automated software systems, audit tracking management systems that are out there that can help you to do this, as well as communicate back and forth with chat rooms throughout those who are monitoring the audit tracking system. So if you don't have one of these, I would encourage you to do this. This helps you to track everything and document everything that's going on, and then as you're putting things back, like your documents, protocols, whatever you brought into play, you know where they came from and where they need to go back to. So it's a very effective system if you don't have one in place already. Let's take a look at this visually. Okay, we've got the front room and the back room. We've mentioned these, but I mentioned the front room, of course, is where the inspection is actually taking place outside of any tours, of course. I'm talking about review of documents, potentially interviews, and that type of thing. So you've got your front room, and then the back room would be a place where, requests are being made. And let me just mention, like this would be a communication avenue, if you will, for this audit tracking management system. This could be electronic. This flow through right here could be electronic between the front room and the back room, and there may be the need for back and forth communication. I mentioned the chat room scenario. Okay, so you work with the back room on what it is that needs to be done, what documents need to be pulled, what interviews need to be set up, what tours need to be set up. This is what takes place in your back room. And then once all these documents are people put into place, then you want to review them. Are there any issues that need to be resolved? And folks, please hear me very clearly on this. I'm not talking here about revising SOPs and cleaning up things that aren't done. That's not the point. Remember, they want to see if you're in a state of control. You've got to prove where you are. Demonstrate where you are. Okay? So if you go about revising all of your SOPs on the same day they're there, folks, that does not demonstrate a state of control. That demonstrates quite the opposite. So if you've got issues, let them discover them during the inspection. Don't go pulling them out and that type of thing. To review them and see where you are so you understand what your documents are all about. Then put them into an on-deck location, whether the on-deck be in the back room, whether it be in here, or whether it be in the actual front room itself. On-deck circles, basically, those of you who are familiar with baseball. People are ready to go, documents ready to go. The request has been filled, FDA inspector, and here's where the document's located. Let me know when you need it. Basically, that's what we're talking about here. So this is the basic infrastructure set up, if you will, for how you should manage your inspection. So once again, this at minimum should be readily available and at a moment's notice, and backroom may be the same as well. These, of course, should not be these two, of course, should not be the same room, but have them ready to go at a moment's notice. So we've seen these before. This is your operational inspection management. This is how the whole system should be working. Your role of quality, well, we mentioned site leadership and what their role is, the inspection team, et cetera. So quality has the role of the standard meet and greet, right? Bring the inspectors on site, make sure that they've got their badges and 482s and that type of thing. The role of quality is also to contact your regulatory affairs or whatever, but also to provide a liaison to that group. They're the primary contact for any communication that goes on. And keep in mind the importance of this communication. I believe we'll be talking about this later. But this communication is very important to assure that everyone at the facility, the plant site, knows what's going on during the inspection. And should there be a need to escalate something from the inspection, then it's quality's role to escalate that to either the site leadership or to your corporate quality group. I mentioned that quality should earlier and to ensure that the training takes place. And here we say this item as well, that we ensure that participants, inspection team, et cetera, are, of course, trained and ready to go. The idea of commitments, of course, is always monitored by quality, so that should be no surprise here. And last but not least, the tracking and responding to agency observations. So we know what the role of quality is, but we want to make sure that those of you in your quality areas, are well aware that these are the roles that the FDA expects you to have as well. The inspection readiness kit can come into a couple of different guises, if you will. It can be a physical kit. It can be an electronic kit. But this is what you want to have in here at minimum, okay? Interestingly enough, we have organizational charts here because even though it's not required in the CFR, it's usually the first thing your inspector asks for, okay? So organizational charts, your products, product lines, listing of your inspection team, especially backups, okay? So all these folks I mentioned, by the way, have those roles in place, but make sure you have backups because, let's face it, people either off-site, they're at a meeting in another location, they're on vacation, or whatever the case may be, you want to make sure you have backups to fill in that slot. Review of past citations and what kind of action was going on there. Your quality system manual, your quality manual, your corporate quality policies. These things should be pretty static, so have those in place as well. And notice I have here your site SOP indices, not the SOPs themselves. Okay, they'll be requested and you produces at the time. And again, here's another request, folks, and that is don't print off all of your SOPs. Don't print off all of your training records. Make sure that they're requested first and then print them off. Otherwise, you have stacks and reams of paper that are most likely going to be wasted, okay? Annual product reviews, they should be pretty, quote, static for the past year. Deviation summary, list of rejected lots for a certain period, that type of thing. So, et cetera, et cetera. You decide what you'd like to put in there. Now, this kit isn't something that you would give to the FDA, other than, of course, maybe this would be requested and this may be requested. Oh, and, of course, they may look at these other items as well. But basically what you're looking for here is to have these things ready to go, ready to either review or at least have them for the inspection team to look at prior to being asked about questions or have questions asked about them on these areas and that type of thing. So, you don't want to put these together on, once in a year and let it be done. Suggestion here is to maybe do the inspection readiness kit review on a quarterly basis. I do have period here, right? This could be on a quarterly basis. At the start or at the end of every quarter, make sure your organizational charts are up to date. Your product lines, should be pretty well up to date anyway. Annual product reviews would only be changed, of course, every year. Your SOP indices, that would be changed. So, I would say, on a quarterly basis is when you probably want to have a system in place to make sure your readiness kit is up to speed, okay? I mentioned communication is how important that is, but there are two aspects to communication, okay? And with the inspector as well as with the company. With the inspector, you must make sure you clearly articulate. Remember those words earlier? Clearly articulate what your quality system is all about, how it works, okay? And be able to demonstrate that, because once again, you're here to prove you are in a state of control. So be able to clearly articulate that. And folks here, whether you do it verbally, on a whiteboard, if you do a PowerPoint presentation, make it short, sweet, to the point. No one, especially the FDA, wants to sit through a diatribe of 30 minutes, okay? Make it 5, 6, 10 minutes, and be done, and let them ask questions about the presentation that you're making. With the company, very crucial that you have a good communication system in place to prevent, as you can see here, prevent these rumors going about, oh man, I hear the inspection's going awful. Well, where's that coming from? Okay, so put out notices or statements at the end of the day. We are ongoing an inspection. So far, the inspection team the FDA inspection team has requested the following. Inspection is progressing well, and if it's not progressing well, indicate why. Be very clear so you can eliminate any of these rumors that are going on out there. And also by doing this, you build confidence in management. And I say confidence in two different ways. One, you build up confidence within the management team itself that they're communicating to one another, right? They understand what's happening. They're confident in what's happening amongst them. But also it builds confidence in your management. Because let's face it, folks, there are too many times when management is not looked at in the highest regard. We know that, okay? But if you're communicating what's going on during an inspection and you are right up front about, man, things aren't going well and here's why, then that does in fact build a trust, if you will, in management. And that's what you want to make sure you do here, okay? It allows for and maintains expectations as to what was expected to go on during the inspection, and it has in fact come true. And last but not least, it helps the individuals either in the inspection itself or your employees to have a focus as to there is an inspection going on. And, it needs to be professional. And I now have to remember my proper conduct training that went on. Okay? So it helps to provide that focus as well. So during the inspection, you've got several items here I want to just quickly cover. First, when they arrive, make sure that you see their badge, you see their 482, and be introduced properly. And folks, it's okay to verify this with the FDA, to call them up and verify that in fact you are scheduled for an inspection. You will make sure that you have opening and closeout sessions with your inspectors, and there are, of course, some do's and don'ts we're going to cover as well. All right? So with the arrival inspection, I mentioned this already, your receptionist is your or I guess you could say security, okay, is your front line for this. Make sure your receptionist or security person is well aware of how to handle the inspector, that they see their badge, they have them sign in properly, that they know who to contact, you have a phone tree in place or a calling list in place, they know what to say and know what to do. I mentioned the front room before, that as soon as the receptionist knows they're here, they would then make contact to the front room personnel and get them in place and have that front room ready to go so that you can take the inspector over there. And all of your escorts would be called as well. So all these things take place right off the bat. With your initial opening session, you introduce your players, whether it be your quality director, quality manager, plant manager, regulatory, whoever it might be, who's involved in the inspection. Have them there, introduce them. Review the 482. But notice that what I have here next is do not direct but manage, okay? Too often, too many companies are trying to control these inspections, and this demonstrates panic, nervousness, and whatnot. So what you want to do is simply to manage the inspection. In fact, even though it may sound kind of trite, I had this little statement here: we are prepared to assist you with your request. We give you a tour, we give you documents, whatever you need, and do whatever you can to enable you, Mr. or Mrs. FDA Inspector, to have a successful inspection. Because folks, they want to get in and get out as well as you want them to get in and get out, okay? Smile, maintain eye contact with the lead auditor. Not to be crude, folks, but shut up and wait. You don't need to fill the empty space or empty silence. Just sit there and wait. More than likely, they will be reviewing this 42 or discussing what is their agenda, what is their expectations, et cetera. So just wait to see what's going on. At the end of the day, you may want to have closeout sessions where you introduce some added players or players that may come into play the following day. Look and listen, see, just watch what's happening, okay? Again, you're managing, you're not trying to control. See what's going on, see what the FDA wants to do. Agree that you can take some notes while they're talking. Again, professional courtesy. Again, look and listen. You don't need to comment. You just listen to what's going on. You may receive a 43 at the end of the day, but more than likely it'll be held till the end of the inspection itself. You may receive questions, okay, for some clarity. At this point, you can do that, or you may say, I've got the question written down. Let me get the right SME to clarify this for you, and that person will be here tomorrow. Confirm when they'll be arriving the next day, and escort them, as we see here, one per inspector, one escort per inspector. Now, at the end of the inspection, you have a closeout session as well, and that'll include many things, but you'll expect to receive a 43. Okay, this is just a given anymore, quite honestly. Now, there are some cases where you won't receive a 43. I'm sorry, 43. I said 42. You should expect to receive a 43. But some cases you won't. That's okay. But don't rest on your laurels on that. Okay. If in the event that maybe something is not understood properly, you may want to make some changes. Then you can request an annotated comment, but they cannot erase or eliminate with their initial wording. They'll simply annotate it, okay? Don't argue. That's not the point here. If you don't agree with something, then it's during the response time that you can make this clear. But this is not the time. And likewise, don't brag about things that have gone well. Just simply say thank you, right? And once again, escort to the exit. Okay, so let's take a look at these do's or don'ts. That's why we're here, right? So listen carefully, answer the questions, and answer them honestly, of course. And even if that answer is not the right answer, that will whatever, you have to be truthful and honest about it, folks. Okay? If you don't know the answer, simply say, I'll get the answer for you. You can say I don't know, but the best answer is probably, let me get the answer for you from, yes, you're right, from the SME. Okay? So avoid red flag phrases like, well, I think, or we never do that. Well, next time we'll do it that way. So stay away from these red flags, because if you say something like, well, we never do that, they're going to put you on the task of prove that has never been done. Okay? If you think something, then why don't you know? Right? So these are phrases you want to avoid. So just answer the question, and yes, folks, I'm going to say it again, shut up. Make sure that you answer the question succinctly, honestly, to the point, and then wait for the next question. Maybe a follow-up question, but wait for it. If you're not sure of the question or some nervousness has set in, repeat the question. They may then say, well, that's not exactly what I meant. They may clarify it for you, or they'll say, yeah, that's the question. Okay, so but by repeating it, your mind starts to think, what's the best way to answer this question? Avoid answering, the what-if type of scenarios. That gets into the red flags. So again, as I mentioned earlier, maintain eye contact and make sure you have inspectors escorted at all times. So let's look at some don'ts. Got a few of these here. I mentioned about tour. Don't start a cook's tour, which basically comes down to the scenario or the analogy that if you go into a restaurant and you say to the chef, I really like your food here. He says, well, let me take you on a tour of the restaurant's kitchen. What's he going to show you? The clean areas, the best areas, right? He's not going to show you the stock room, the cleanup room, because that's where all the mess takes place. Okay, so don't think that you can take your inspectors on the same kind of a tour, that you just take them on the best areas. Be prepared to take them any place and through any door. I mentioned earlier, don't say I think and all that, but don't assume or guess you know the answer. Use your SMEs. Don't provide misleading or suggestive information to make it sound like things are better than they really are. Again, don't argue with the inspector. Don't philosophize or editorialize or get on a soapbox about a certain issue. You're here to answer questions, and don't ramble on and on and on. Answer the questions succinctly to the point. Show them what they need to be seen, what needs to be seen, and simply move on. And while you're out there, if they've gone to an area and they missed something, this is not the time for you to say, oh, by the way, I think you may have missed this hole in the terrazzo floor over here by the drain. No, this is not what you're here to do. If you note that, you record that in your notes and you make sure that it's taken care of. But if they do find that crack in the floor or something like that, this is not the time either to apologize. You're not there to say, I'm sorry. You're there to take notes, to make note of this and say, thank you, I will make sure this is taken care of. And if possible, have it taken care of even before the inspection is completed. Just like the silence scenario, don't feel like you have to respond to every comment that's being made. If they see something, you make note of it. You don't have to say, thank you for that observation, or I'll look into that. Not a single word. Just, you don't have to say anything. Obviously, don't lie or provide false information. That it kind of ties in with this over here as far as misleading, but don't think you have to provide the right answer. You provide the right answer, but don't think that you have to provide the answer they want to hear. Much like arguing, disagreeing, don't become defensive or even evasive about an answer or a topic that they're addressing. The looking away and being fidgety just seems to mirror your nervousness at times, but make sure it's not because of guilt, all right? Try not to enter into a casual conversation. I mean, you can, weather and that type of thing, but the closer you get, the more casual the conversation gets, the more you're likely to maybe say something that you shouldn't be saying or allude to something that shouldn't be mentioned. So try to avoid the casual conversations. As with the praising scenario, this is not the time to brag. Oh, thank you very much for that. So the inspector may say, oh, the laboratory looks really good. Well, thank you very much. You should have been here last week before we cleaned up. See, this is the kind of thing that can happen during an inspection. And don't sign any affidavits. Your job is to, if you receive an affidavit, is to contact legal department and move forward from there. Okay, so there's a few of your do's and don'ts. When it's over, make sure you meet with your corporate office so they are briefed daily as far as what's been going on. Review and enforce your observations and your own perspectives about the inspection. How did it go? And prepare to plan right away on how to respond to this 483s. Put a team together right off the bat. Don't wait for a week or two. You've got that 15-day window, so use that to your best ability and get this response underway. Meet with the team, the front room leaders, the commanders-in-chief. Meet with them and determine, well, were there any shortfalls? Did we miss something? And what worked well? What do we want to make sure we repeat the next time that an inspection takes place? And as a result of this first item here, incorporate that into your next training sessions that go on. And then last but not least is return all your documents, materials, whatever you got to show the inspectors. Make sure you return that as soon as possible to get it back into its proper location. So what do you want to do now? Well, write that inspection SOP, okay? Develop plans for types of inspections, whether it be general, pre-approval, scale-up, post-approval, complaints, surveillance. Again, go to that 735-6.002 and look at that. Establish your phone tree. I mentioned the receptionist should have this in her binder right there at the desk when the inspector walks in. Do these training sessions. Put them together so people know how to conduct themselves during an inspection. Role play it out, right? I didn't cover it exactly before, but here's the time. Do a mock inspection. Role play it out, okay? Pretend someone's an FDA, or not pretend, but have someone pretend they're an FDA inspector and have the team and have it all, you know, going from beginning to end. They walk in the door and walk through the inspection. Script it out, folks. It's okay. Script the whole thing out. So everybody knows what to say. And they get comfortable to saying these types of things. Now, our inspections are held every 2 years, but you can do these, whether you do them once a year, twice a year, every year, whatever you want to do to get people into the realm. But basically, I would say, you know, maybe just do biannually, which is every 2 years. But if you want to do them often throughout the process, do as often as you can, because they are surprise inspections, right? So why not make your mock inspections surprise? Do them like in the spring, and maybe do them in the fall or something like that, and just keep people on their toes and ready to go for the mock inspection and be ready for a real inspection. Write the receptionist script. Again, role play that out, and design your tours not as a cook's tour, but design them in a proper fashion as to where you want to take them. So next time the phone rings, you'll know what to do. Okay, there's no panic to set in. Not that you sit back in your chair and watch things happen, but basically you're going to have this look of, I'm confident, I know what to do, I know that people know what to do, and our team's in place, our rooms are ready to go, and we will have a successful inspection. All right? So with that, I will tell you that I believe we have identified the various factors that you need to put into place to effect a successful FDA inspection. And just remember that it's a verification activity that provides the regulatory agencies with what they need to know to demonstrate that you are in a state of control, okay? And that you assure a continual state of control. And last but not least, remember, as we saw from the very beginning, that your planning and pre-planning, right, can keep this whole inspection process from becoming an emotional event, because we know that too often that happens. So this planning can certainly help you in that area as well. So Sam, that wraps us up with the presentation, and we'll open the floor for questions.
Thank you, Kerry. It's time for the Q&A to begin, and we request all who have questions for our presenter to click on the raise hand option, which is the palm-like icon at the bottom of your participants panel, to ask your questions verbally, or post your questions in the Q&A panel so that our presenter can read it out loud and then answer. For any reason, if you're unable to ask your question using either of the two means I mentioned, please share it with me by chat, and I shall pass it on to a presenter to answer them. Meanwhile, we sincerely request you to share your feedback in the feedback form that will appear on your screen in the polling panel right now. This feedback form has just 8 questions, mostly multiple choice in nature, and it wouldn't take more than 2 minutes of time to answer. The polling will remain open till the end of session, and you can answer it even after the Q&A is over. We would be grateful if you could stay back a little longer and complete this feedback for us. On the screen, you can see the upcoming webinars of Kerry Paul Porter. If you'd like to take part in any of these webinars, you can log into our website, www.globalcompliancepanel.com, and you can register to take part in any of these webinars. And we have the past webinars of Kerry. These webinars are available in the recorded format, and if you'd like to purchase any of these webinars, please log into our website, and please follow the link shown on the screen to know more information about Kerry's webinars and also Global Compliance Panel's webinars. Gary, I do not see any questions coming up now.
Well, I've either answered all their questions or I had them thoroughly confused. But I'm trusting that I've answered all their questions, and they now know what they need to put into place to have an effective and successful FDA inspection.
Thank you, Gary. Gary, before we end the session, do you have any concluding remarks or any message to be passed on to the attendees, Gary?
Well, none other than what I just mentioned, and that is that looking at going back to the do it now slide, you can see get things in place. The thing is not to wait until an inspector arrives, and that's when the panic mode sets in, but start it now. Start that training process for how to have proper conduct during FDA inspection. Read 7356.002 on the FDA's website. Do everything you can now to prepare for a mock inspection and have all this ready to go rather than waiting until after the next inspection and you're going to say to yourself, why didn't I do this before? Get your inspection readiness kit ready to go and have that in place. So all the things we talked about, start them now.
Thank you very much, Gary. The attendees, if you feel that you're unable to ask your questions now, and if you get any questions about this webinar at any point of time, please send us an email to webinars@globalcompliancepanel.com, and we'll get the answer from the presenter and we'll reply to you as soon as possible. Gary, we got a question. I'll just forward it to you.
Is it in the chat room?
Oh, yes, I'll send it to you.
Any comment on FDA inspections of compounding pharmacies? Well, that's a yes or no question. So I don't have any comment on these. I'm not sure what we're looking for here, but apparently these inspections have uncovered some situations that were going on that probably should have been going on, and so I don't really have any comment.
Thank you, Gary. So with this, we are moved to the end of this session. We are grateful to all of you for having taken part in this webinar. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can send us an email to webinars@globalcompliancepanel.com, or you can call us at 800-447-9407. We welcome your suggestions and feedback or ideas on how we can improve our webinars. If you'd like to suggest a topic or desire a customized corporate training, we ensure that whatever is your training necessity, it will be a priority. On behalf of our presenter, Gary Paul Potter, and the Global Compliance Panel team, I would like to say thank you for participating in this webinar, and we wish you a great day ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gary.
And you're quite welcome.